I had had enough.
Well, you drove out there into the middle of nowhere and had some sort of loud verbal display challenging ET in general out in the middle of nowhere?
That's what I was doing. I actually had a pistol in my hand at the time. I was really ticked off. When I was having this fit, I was waving the gun in the air, okay, and I had this fit. And at this moment, I said, okay.
He was a Louisiana man named Montaldo. Folks around called him Six Gun Joe. Worked with ICAR, don't you know? Investigating UFO. Out for a drive with a gal one night, they stopped to check out the reporting site. When an alien lit right there on the ground, he commenced to throwing his weight around. Now, old Six Gun didn't take too kindly to that kind of thing, especially without Vaseline or anything like that, Seriously. Well, Six Gun looked that critter right in the eye and said, "Any last wish before you die?" He yelled, reached for his gun, quick as a twitch, and said, "Fill your claw, you son of a bitch." Now a legend spread across the land about this pistol-waving man. But if you're from space or from Earth below, you don't give no lip to Six Gun Joe.
other ways you can listen to us. Now, we're also, John Greenwald Jr. from Black Vault Radio, blackvault.com and Black Vault Radio, has also picked up my show and several others from the network and are now carrying them on DVRN Radio, which is Black Vault Radio Network. So if you can't find us here, you can find us there. His show is also on my network. It airs in the rerun system because he's live on Saturdays, and we already have shows live on Saturdays. So that's all wonderful stuff you can catch us on, along with, like I said, the many other networks you can catch us on. Also, all the different podcast sites from iTunes to GoDaddy to Macpedia to a whole host. I think we're on 50 podcast sites now. So there's no excuse for you not to listen to my show or any of the shows on the Paranormal Radio Network for that means. Get out there, pick them up. I know y'all are listening because I can see the numbers every week and I can see the archive hit. So I know y'all are enjoying the shows. If for anything you'd like a particular guest or you'd like something changed in the station or you've got any ideas for the station, you can always write to me at uprn@cox.net or at ICAR@cox.net. Either one, I respond to both emails. I will tell you this, on average, it takes me about 10 to 12 days to reply to an email, so don't get your feelings hurt. I got a lot of emails coming every day because not just the radio station, but I'm international director for ICAR, and we have a lot of contact cases coming in over the years. So there's always something going on, guys. So be a little patient when you write to me, but I will respond. I respond to all of my emails personally, even though it is a nightmare. Anyway, enough about all of that. I want to just let all my friends know that we did survive the hurricane, and we did ride the hurricane out in New Orleans. So no big deal. Tonight's guest is going to be Jeff Peckman. He's very interesting. He's got a couple interesting things. The sites are posted on all three of our sites. You can find it on UFO Undercover, on Paranormal Radio Network, and on the iCar site. So you can go link in, read through the site while we're there. The easiest way to find it is just go to UFO Undercover, click the site, and go. Now, I'm going to bring Jeff on in a second. There's a couple of things I was reading through his site, like some updated news he has on there, what he's doing in Denver, which I find very fascinating in itself. Jeff, let me get you to introduce yourself a little bit, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and then what possessed you to get into this?
Well, I have always been interested in cutting-edge solutions, things that information, knowledge that connects me with the rest of the universe, with my own inner self. I've practiced meditation, taught meditation for many years, and have another website called worldpeacemarket.com that promotes a new technology. But about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I heard a talk by Stan Romanek, who does seem to have perhaps the most documented case of alien contact, and I was very impressed with the evidence that he presented. And I thought, well, great, everybody's going to know about this, and it'll pretty much confirm what most people know already, that we are not alone in the universe. And nothing really came from that in the media. Actually, that was not a public meeting, but later on there was a public meeting, and the media was invited back in January of this year and did not report on it. So that puzzled me. Then a couple months after that, John Schuessler of MUFON had been a former NASA engineer, and he had a stack of documents, a lot of declassified documents, confirming that the government cover-up part of this issue was true. I thought, great, so everybody's going to know about this. But he ended his talk by saying that he did not expect that the U.S. government would disclose what it knows about the UFO and ET reality in his lifetime. And I thought, hold a second here. I figured, that's just wrong. Because first of all, we are the government, we the people here.
Yes, we are.
And we are the government. And secondly, there's obviously enough between what he said and what Stan Romanek had presented. There's obviously enough evidence to support this theory of extraterrestrial reality that we don't need the federal government to disclose much of what needs to be known in order to really convince people, yeah, there's something going on here. And so I knew how to do a ballot initiative. Not all states allow this, but Colorado certainly does, and I think 16 other states. And I've done it before, and I thought, I'll just create a ballot initiative to essentially achieve what people are hoping the federal government will do in terms of disclosure. So by the time I got back home from his talk, John Schuessler's talk, that was, within 30 minutes, I'd pretty much decided or figured out a concept for how to create a ballot initiative around this issue. and to take the information directly to the people, which is important because, James Madison, a former president, spoke about, he said, the people are the only legitimate fountain of power, and it's from them that all these other powers of government are derived. So that was the strategy that I took, and it seems to be working well in terms of tapping into that power and gaining the attention of the media, because they see that this is a very serious thing. When you go directly to the people with anything, the media tends to cover it because it's a local thing that has potentially global implications.
Well, for you, the local media is easier to deal with. I mean, isn't it for you? I mean, I know for me it is. I have a lot easier time when I'm dealing with local media with any of the subjects that I work on than I do with trying to get anything into the national media. I swear it's like pulling teeth to even get them to recognize anything. I mean, is that true for you, or have you had better success?
It's actually been just the opposite. Initially, and on 2 ballot initiatives that I've done, there started out to be a little bit of local media coverage, but the national and international media then picked it up quite quickly, and it became a huge story. And then it was only after that the local media really started covering it a lot more and digging into the issue when they saw that other people in the world were interested. So both of these, maybe I'm just lucky, but both of these previous ballot initiative about 5 years ago and now this one, instantly attracted media attention, and it was sustained for some time, and really allowed people to go more deeply into information that was either new or previously underreported.
That makes sense. Well, I'm glad it kind of went backwards because, like I said, usually we have a hard time with anything in national. Local, usually if I call the local media down here, as long as there's not a hurricane or something like that going on, usually if I call them, they'll respond. They'll send out now we don't ever get a big report. They always get like a cover, something like that. But still, they tend to cover it here in New Orleans and in Houston. I notice they do it quite a lot. But stories that are picked up locally, I rarely ever see them hit the national news. Every once in a while. But see, you seem to have just the opposite luck there, which is nice. Because once it makes national, the people can get involved, which is what you're trying to do. I mean, if you got to get, I tell us, ufologists all the time, if you want to make a difference, you got to get the word out to the general population. Preaching to the choir is not going to do you any good.
That's true. That's true. And you're one of the champions, and I feel very grateful to be speaking with people like you that have been at this for decades. I'm relatively new to this whole topic, but I saw an opportunity to create really a forum so that people that do have something very important to say can bring that to Denver, and through Denver it can reach the rest of the world. So whether it's a DVD, a book, a white paper, some personal experience, it seems that that's the way it's unfolding, that people are looking at Denver now as a portal to getting this information directly to the people. And, when I said the media picked it up, I mean, I don't know how many of your listeners your show is probably, I'm certain it's much more interesting than what's normally in the mainstream media. But if they've been noticing within the first 6 weeks of doing this ballot initiative, and I should say that when I first filed the draft, you have to go through a few legal steps, and the first is just to give a draft of what you're intending to do to the city council attorney and the city council director of staff, and then within 10 days they have a little sit-down meeting with you and kind of go over it and just try to understand what it is. They don't tell you to change anything, but they'll ask questions and comments. And in fact, I've revised the petition, and we'll be doing the same kind of meeting tomorrow. So that's been getting a little bit of news coverage. But when I first started, I didn't even tell the media about it at all. I didn't solicit any interviews because I really needed about 3 months of time to get things underway and to actually work on another couple of projects. But because it became a matter of public record, a local reporter, Daniel Chacon at the Rocky Mountain News, picked up on it and wrote an article. Well, the day after that, I got invited by 1 or 2 TV stations who thought, okay, well, this is interesting. They did an interview, and from there, within about 10 days, it was all over the world. And within the first 6 weeks, I ended up doing about 70 interviews on all the major national TV networks, local networks, a number of newspapers, a lot of radio interviews, and then that 6-week period ended up with me on the stage with David Letterman talking about this, and also Geraldo. And then we also did, Stan Romanek and I did an uplink with Larry King just before that. So it was a huge thing, and really within those 6 weeks, part of it was the ballot initiative itself, and then it was this so-called alien video, which was mistakenly called the Jeff Peckman alien video.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It was Stan Romanek, and that was, another wave. And I was trying to follow this. Just it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. And wow, within the first, after that alien video was shown, my campaign website got about 250,000 hits within the first 24 hours, and it became like a top story on AOL, Yahoo, MSN homepages. It was one of the top Google searches, top YouTube searches. It really just created this splash. And so obviously something's going on here, Joe. I mean, I'm not that organized to, to cause all of this. I know how to do a ballot initiative, and it seemed to be a good topic. And I really sense that it's a different time now. It's a new day, and that perhaps even the same group that has controlled the media to not report on this issue is now swinging in the other direction and finding convenient ways to get this information out, because it seems beyond the ability of the federal government to do it in any effective way.
Well, the feds need some deniability, and they need some, they need a buffer, basically, so they don't get sued or they don't find themselves in a bunch of legal problems. So if it comes out via a public source or a private source, what have you, the government's not so much responsible. They can say, well, we kind of thought, or we did this, or we did that, but they don't have to outright say they knew about this, because at this point, I've talked to a lot of people in the last decade about this on the air, and I got to say, one of the problems for the government is if tomorrow they come out and say this is a real phenomena, they're going to have 500,000 lawsuits against them, and for a whole host of reasons. And and that's just one part of it. They still got to deal with Russians keeping technology from them, and a few other things besides that. So it's hard for the feds to come right out and say, okay, guys, ET's visiting the planet, and this is how it is. But for someone like ourselves and other people that are in the field, if the right group of people get together and can put the right pressure, and if there's enough of this come forward, I really think you might get some cooperation from the government. But other than that, I don't. I argue with Stephen Bassett about this all the time, because he's going to have disclosure in 2009, and I just can't see it happen. I can't see for the federal government, or I shouldn't even say the federal government, whatever part of the government this is that deals with this, where it's to their benefit to come forward. Right now, everything points to it would be harmful to the government to come forward versus not. So I just, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take, and what you're doing is a good start. That's a good way of putting pressure on them.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really not the intent to put pressure on people. It's a little bit like the theory that you could put pressure on a terrorist to suddenly get them to see the light.
Yeah.
The brain just doesn't work that way. You stress out a person, and it just goes the opposite direction.
That's true.
They're less able to think clearly and to think about things beyond their own immediate needs or mission. And so, this will be done, I think, first directly through the people, because a few interviewers have asked me, well, why don't you do it on a higher level, like state or federal? Well, first of all, there are no ballot initiatives at a federal level. State takes a lot more time and resources.
Yeah.
But really, this is within our country. I feel like this is going over the heads of Congress and the White House directly to the people. Again, back to that higher source of power. And I believe that it'll happen much more effectively that way. And a number of people have told me that, I think especially Stephen Greer, Dr. Greer said in his efforts in speaking with members of Congress, that one of the most common responses was that, we're just kind of stuck here. We can't do this very effectively. I mean, if this information is going to get out to the people, it really needs to be on a grassroots level. Because of that perception, that perspective, I believe that a lot of support is gravitating towards this very humble, modest ballot initiative, because it is seen as something that has a lot of leverage. And from one small effort, it can impact a much broader range that starts to get a lot of people off the hook. It's like you say, it's not easy for them. And I think they probably just botched the job anyway.
Yeah, they probably
as
would.
some kind of national disclosure program. So, person to person, I think, is the way to go here, because this is a very important human interaction, human decision that has to be made. And one thing that is important that I've observed in other instances with ballot initiatives is that it's one thing to provide information to a lot of people. But so many people are in the habit of relinquishing their responsibilities to the government, to their employer, to somebody supporting them, that if they're not making a conscious decision about a piece of information, it doesn't really settle in with them. And so by putting this on the ballot for a vote, what I've observed is that just ordinary people, you, me, your listeners, everybody else, when they vote on something, it really does elevate them to that level of a lawmaker, somebody that has to really deliberate and think, now, all right, what are the pros and cons of this thing? I'm making a law here, and is this good for me, for my family, my community, my nation, my planet, my universe? I've noticed that they really rise to the occasion, and they study this kind of topic more thoroughly than if they were just hearing some information that just passes right over them. Maybe a little bit sticks, but they really go into it. And one thing that I especially enjoy seeing is that in schools throughout the city, or even in other parts of the country, when this is on the ballot, what's likely to happen, and this always happens with the ballot initiative that I've seen, is that classrooms of students in political science, in social studies, they will pick an issue from an election that seems to be unique somehow, and they'll hold a mock election, and they'll hold debates within the classroom, and it'll be their classwork to study the issue and to be able to answer the hard questions. And these kids, these students, when they come out of that experience, if you talk to them, they're as knowledgeable as most of the people you'll find that have been at this for decades. I mean, they just suck it up, and they really go deeply into the issue. And I think these will be the future experts, the people that are really leading the way. And that's why one of the reasons that I think a ballot initiative is so important, because it does engage the general public in that way, and also the students.
Well, I'm just glad to see somebody out there doing something, I'll be honest with you. And it amazes me that you did this in Denver, because that's where MUFON used to be based. Where are they now? They moved again, I think. I know they were based in Denver, Colorado, but I think James said they were moving back to Texas.
Right. I think. Well, Alejandro Rojas.
Yeah, he's in Denver. I know that. I talked with him. He's actually friends with him. We have a bunch of mutual friends.
Yeah, I imagine.
And but I know he's in Denver, because that's where Phil Torrey is. He's in Denver too, and he's my Colorado State director. So I know he knows he's there. But when I had talked with James Carrion in Las Vegas, I know he said they were thinking about moving it somewhere in Texas. I thought he said San Antonio. I could be wrong. The guys, look, don't quote me, because I'm not positive. This was 2 years ago we had this conversation. Okay, so something else I was thinking, Jeff, while we were talking. One of the other reasons you see more and more media getting involved today is because they have to deal with shows like mine and Coast to Coast and Jeff Rentz and Kevin Smith and Jerry Pittman and all, because we're taking a big share of the market. I mean, this show does 500,000 listeners weekly. That's a chunk of the market on Wednesday nights. And I'm not the only one out there that's doing this. And, Coast to Coast is doing 3-4 million listeners a night, and then you have Jerry Pittman and Jeff Rentz and them all. But when you put the 6 or 7 top shows together that talk about this, they're taking 10-15 million listeners weekly. And that's got to be hurting big media. I mean, I can't see them just wanting to let us have these listeners. And this show grows there. Well, it's like when I got involved with this, I really thought, somebody asked me to host a radio show. I'm like, yeah, I'll have like 2 listeners a week, maybe 3, And no, really, I'm being serious now. And a couple of months passed, and I realized, damn, we had like 20,000 listeners. I'm like, wow, I was impressed. And just before I switched from Wake Up USA to UFO Undercover, the show was doing close to 1 million listeners a week. Now, when I started the station, it had a big whopping 20 listeners. Today, just 18 months later, it does 3.3 million listeners weekly. So it tells you the demand for this kind of information. They're not getting it from the regular media, so they're looking for alternative medias. And now the regular media is starting to realize they're starting to lose market shares. I've had a couple of companies approach me about the share of market that we expect to take in the next 5 years. We really, current things have this station doing 10, 15 million listeners weekly. That's as big as any station in the United States by far. And there's a lot of interest in this, and there's a lot of interest in moving away from media, but yet making the alternative media still be credible, which I don't know how they're going to do that, because personally, things like CNN and Fox have lost pretty much all credibility with me to start off with. So I'm not sure what anybody, when they say credible media, what they're talking about. I noticed journalism is not what it used to be. People aren't out there really, I noticed today, if you can sit and watch the major news stations, and you can go from station to station to station. They're all reporting the same thing, but they're all different. Now, it's the same event, like there was an accident a couple months ago where there was about 25 cars involved. One station had 5 cars with 6 people dead. One station had 15 cars with 2 people dead, and so on and so forth. What the hell happened to news? In the end, there was 7 people killed and 37 cars piled up, but not one of the stations got it right. So I'm kind of wondering today, and it's like with Katrina, I'm sitting at home in New Orleans watching the national news about Katrina, and about 80% of what they said was not true. It simply was not true. They were just making stuff up. And, I didn't think that's what media was supposed to do. I thought we were supposed to report the news according, to exactly how it happened, not according to our own opinions. And that's what news media has become in the United States. It's become a format for opinions. It's not really news anymore. With the exception, there's a few good shows out there like Larry King and a few others that still do some hard-hitting journalism, but in general, you don't see it anymore. And now that you have other sources that are getting much more in-depth into subjects like ufology or any of the paranormal ranges or any of the New Age ranges, last year when I seen the standings, 86 million Americans are either messing with an alternative religion or in a New Age religion. So that's 86 million people who are not really going to be concerned with Fox and CNN are talking about. They're just not going to be. And then there's probably another 80 or 90 million above that. So at least half the country is at this point does not really care what the mainstream media says anymore. And you can tell that by the election coverages. It's a sad state of affairs, but for what you're doing, it doesn't matter, because the way you're presenting this, as long as the news medias pick it up, then they can find your site and get all the information they need. So that's a different beast. But a lot of this stuff, they don't do it that way. They just say whatever they want and don't give you any reference sources or anything, and just go on to the next thing.
That's true. I get a little bit of that too. Things have come out in the media that, I've been credited with statements made by the Vatican astronomer, by Alejandro Rojas.
Yeah.
I've been called the film expert that authenticated Stan Romanek's film. They've gotten a lot wrong, but at least they're talking about it.
It's like Stan's film. A couple of weeks ago, about 6 or 7 weeks ago, somebody wrote me a letter saying, "Did you see that film, Jeff?" And I had talked to Stan not long before that, and I was like, "Well, wait, now I'm getting confused." I said, "No, this is Stan's video. Jeff is just dealing with it." But I said, "You know what? I'll just ask him when he comes on the show." But that's the way I was explained to me, that it was Stan's video, and actually the video I seen isn't even the real video. I don't think I've seen the real video yet, to be honest with you. I've seen a bunch of lookalikes and a bunch of. You know what kills me too, Jeff? There must be 30 sites out there that claim to have the original video.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and a guy wrote me. Well, actually, a guy called me on the phone the other day. He says, "Joe," I said, "Look," I said, "as far as I know, the real video is not on the internet." I said, "Now I got Jeff coming on the show." I said, "I'll ask Jeff," but I said, "But my understanding is that the real video has not been made available on the internet yet. They're doing something else with it." And so then I start getting all these emails. "Oh no, here it is," and most of these are obviously just poor hoaxes.
Yeah.
I don't know how y'all deal with that stuff. That just irritates me, man. I'm just like, come on, people, grow up.
Well, it's true. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. It's an interesting phenomenon that happened on YouTube with all this stuff out there. And before I knew it, somebody had purchased my name as part of a website domain name and is trying to push toolbars.
Shit, don't you love when they do crap like that? That just floors me when they do stuff like that.
Yeah. So, but it really did. It engaged people. I mean, it's just funny how it came out, but it did engage people in a lot of discussion. And so I think when as the truth keeps unfolding, at least they'll be sort of loosened up and ready. It won't hit them for the first time. And maybe it's better just to, stir things up a little bit before the real truth comes out. So they'll have, it takes them maybe a little more time to get them to recognize what is true. But, that's the same thing with just about any field of knowledge. You'll get people debating both ends of the spectrum, and you never really know, what the real truth is. But at least people are trying to be proactive, whether it's alternative, natural health care. There's every kind of book and remedy and all that. But at least people are thinking, yeah, it's good to be healthy. I mean, if they're doing that and they're proactive, then, give them some credit. And in general, we hope that they're not doing anything that's causing them harm. But there's always going to be this kind of debate, at least that it is getting debated more and more.
And that's the thing, it is getting debated. And that does make it a little better and things a little easier. And it's like we were talking, getting people to realize it, to pay attention. That's the thing. If you can get enough people to wake up, and Denver is a fairly open-minded town. I got quite a few friends up there, and they seem to be a fairly well-rounded, fairly open-minded group up there. They don't seem to be like some of the Yankee cities I've been in recently, where you mention the word UFO and they look at you like you fell off a truck or something. Now, I got to honest, I live in the Bible Belt. I really thought when I got involved with this that I was making a fatal mistake because I own a construction company in New Orleans, and I've been in the local paper and been in the local media, and I thought it was going to hurt my business. Come to find out, though, which is, by the way, is still amazing to me, that it's quite acceptable down here. The Gulf Coast seems to embrace this. I mean, we have police officers call us all the time about things they've seen or experienced. Right after Katrina, we had some National Guards and some PDs call us about something that had happened down on Esplanade. So it's much more acceptable down here than I thought it was. And I'm sure part of that is because the city of New Orleans itself is a paranormal city anyway. And we're linked to all the major cities in the Gulf South. And it seems to be quite a bit more acceptable here than it is once you cross the Mason-Dixon line. Now, the West Coast seems to be quite acceptable. But when you start getting up in places like New York or Pennsylvania or even Illinois, which is surprising, they seem to really frown on it. And I just don't understand why. I don't see what the difference is. I guess it's one of those things that'll make me crazy because there is no real explanation for why half the country's like, okay, and the other half the country's like, no, y'all are all nuts. Speaking of that, ladies and gentlemen, I will be on Coast to Coast Monday night with Melinda Leslie. We'll be discussing MILAB cases. I think it's Monday the 8th. It was going to be Tuesday. Well, it was going to be this Tuesday, but then the hurricane came, so then it was going to be next Tuesday. But anyway, it's going to be Monday the 8th. You can come check out Melinda Leslie and I talking about MILABs with George Norrie on Coast to Coast. We'll be on the full 4 hours, so come and check it out. Sorry about that, Jeff. I forgot to plug that at the beginning.
No, go ahead. It's your show.
I just forgot to plug it. I do Coast once or twice a year, and Melinda's a friend of mine, and we've been working on this joint research on, we call them MILABs. Actually, we're trying to come up with a better word for it because nobody really knows what it is, but somehow or another that MILAB word got coined, so we'll be discussing it on Coast to Coast on what we consider to be a legitimate case and whatnot and so on. All of that funny stuff, I'm sure the video will come up because all of that stuff always anytime I get on Coast to Coast, it's a menage of what we're going to talk about because, we do one type of research, but the organization in itself has its fingers in quite a lot of things. And now that we're like 6 times the size of MUFON, we're into a lot more stuff. Don't get the media coverage they do, but we get way more cases and they do way more information. On average, probably on sighting cases, we refer those all out now, but we were getting probably 25, 30 a week every week. Suction cases about 5 or 6 a week every week, and this has been going on for 10 years. So, and then membership, but we don't charge anyway. People hear me pick on MUFON all the time, but not to really pick on MUFON charges for membership, so it's a lot harder. When you're asking somebody to pay $50 for the year to be a member, we don't charge a membership. Our car is completely privately funded, so there's no need for membership. We're just looking for volunteers to help out with the workload. Now, getting back to Jeff, because I keep jumping subjects on y'all here. Now, you think this will be feasible? I heard you say earlier 16 other states have this law where you can do this ballot?
I think there's 16 states that have ballot initiative and referendum. It's what it's usually called.
I'm going to have to look and see if we're one of them. I'll give you a hand if we are. Just Louisiana's kind of backwards.
Well, I've checked into that. You might. I think Baton Rouge does.
Oh, well, that would be nice.
Even when it's not available at the statewide level, very often there are little pockets of counties or towns or cities or villages that will have those initiative rights in one form or another. They might call it different things, but people could just look into their state or local ordinances, statutes or local ordinances or charter, and just find out if they have initiative or referendum rights. Referendum usually means that the legislative body, city council or state legislature, would create a ballot for a particular issue, and they would put it on the ballot. Whereas an initiative is something that's done by ordinary citizens, and then they collect signatures, and from that it goes onto the ballot for a vote.
I'll have to look and see, because if I find out you can do it, I'll have to give you a call and see how you go about that. Because, look, any help we could give you, I'd love to, because, like I said, there seems to be quite a bit more interest, at least late in the last couple of years, there seems to be quite a bit more interest in the South in this particular stuff. And it's like the 105 on FM down here, we weren't going to get on terrestrial-based radio, and someone actually offered to pick the station up and carry it on local FM, because they said they're tired of hearing Rush radio all the time. Which, don't get me wrong, I mean, some of the stuff on Rush radio is pretty good. Some of it's crazier than what we talk about, but still, it's either music or political talk radio. There wasn't anything else except for maybe Coast to Coast late at night. And they wanted something else, another alternative is what they wanted. And so that when they approached me about it, I'm like, fine, yeah, you can put us on 105 and carry the station. So they carry us 5 nights a week now, and it gives the local listeners an alternative station to listen to. And I gotta say, we get our first audit this month, and it looks promising. It looks like we're going to take a full maybe 28 to 38% of the market share, which is, in today's market, since there's like 18 radio stations here, that is huge.
Congratulations.
And
that's very good news.
and it's what it looks like across the country. The more people find out about us, the more people who want to listen. But honestly, if they don't come to listen to me, even though I'm yapping tonight, they come to listen to you or whoever else. There's been quite a few other paranormal people we brought on the station that are considered to be the tops in the field. Same thing in ufology and the rest of the fields. And then we've got a lot of exclusives that no one else seems to get. So it's an alternative thing. People can come sit and listen. That and we promote that we like for the audience to be fully interactive. We have the 800 numbers where they can call in. We have the virtual auditoriums where they can pop into and raise their hand and talk live. There's 3 email accounts they can email to, and then there's some text message. And so we actually, really want audience participation. And usually, I'm going to say the audience is pretty bright, all in all. I have found that most Americans, or for that matter, most people in the world, if you give them the information, they usually assimilate it quite well. I guess I'm not like the local politicians who think if they tell you too much, you'll lose your mind.
Yeah.
I find that most people can handle it. And I've gotten a lot of email about this particular show because people were interested in what you were doing in Denver. I got to honestly say, a lot of people wrote me and said, well, he's lost his mind. He can't be serious. He's going to bring this into politics. I said, well, he's not the first one to try to bring it. He's just got a good idea on how to do it. And I said he's kind of taken a sideways approach to it, which is actually, it's a direct, but it's kind of sideways. And I said, it seems to be working. It's generating a lot of good media. And if it really works in Denver the way he says it was, I can't see where it's going to do anything but help the field. Of course, I could be wrong.
Yeah, me too. But
you know,
where's the gamble here?
yeah, I think you're going to be all right. I just with the amount of press you got now, you know, I can't. Like someone just sent me a message about the video. Is it real or not? Guys, I haven't even seen it. How can I tell you if it's real or not? Okay, don't ask me that again. And I don't think Jeff's going to comment on one way or another until it's released. So, and really, we don't have him here tonight to talk about the video. I mean, he can, but we got him here to talk about a couple other things. But you see, that's the thing. You start seeing these questions about the video, about the video, about the video. Guys, when it's released, trust me, whenever it hits anywhere, I will post it to all our sites so y'all can find it easily, okay?
If it matters, I believed when I saw it the first time, I believed it was real. But that's because when you hear Stan's entire presentation and all the things that have gone on for 8 years now and how frequently they happen, you know, weekly, there's stuff going on. In fact, I just got sent, he just out of his basement window yesterday afternoon, snapped a photo of a big triangle up in the sky above his house. And I said, well, how big was it, you know, when you put your arm out? You know, because people always, you know, they say, oh, it's the size of a BB or a pea or something like that. He said it would have taken about 2 or 3 fingers at arm's length to cover it up. Now, that's huge.
Yeah, that is huge.
And so, you know, he just sent me that yesterday, and stuff is happening there a lot. But, you know, after 2 or 3 hours, well, actually, I think it's almost 4 hours of his presentation, there's so much in there, you're pretty much already convinced. So when he shows even the still from the video or the video itself, it's kind of like a final visual confirmation of what you had already been convinced of. And so it's easy to believe it, but, you know, it really does need more research. And I do try to dissuade people from putting too much weight on a single video.
Yeah.
The media itself, you know, when what happened, the way that came about was that, again, I didn't solicit any media attention initially. They just kind of found out and started calling me in large numbers. So I did a lot of interviews, and very often they'd say, well, you know, why'd you do this? I said, well, I saw, you know, I've been presented with different kinds of evidence, you know, declassified documents or some stories or some photos or some videos. And it was almost the same response from a lot of people. They'd say, video? What video? And I'd describe what I saw, and they'd say, huh, can I see that?
Yeah,
how can I see that? You got to let me see that. You know, and they'd get really animated, and I'd say, okay, let me see what I can do. So I thought, just as a courtesy to them, you know, they took interest in this initiative I was doing. I said, I'll ask the man who has that video that was, you know, kind of reinforced my own belief. I'll see if he'd be willing to show it in some context. And he was. And so we set up, you know, what I thought would be, you know, a handful of local media. I sent out a press release. I said, okay, so here's the video that I've talked about will be shown, and I'm doing this to fulfill my promise to you that I would try to allow you to see it somehow. And it was that. It was just that. It was just a very innocent kind of thing, but the media itself built it up into this thing, you know, Jeff Peckman has ultimate proof of alien life on the, you know, this stuff. And it was just went crazy. And, you know, it just kept going crazy, you know, after the thing. And some of the news people came out of that, and, you know, we had a pretty good turnout. I think at least a dozen cameras and about 30 or 40 media people present. And people came out of that, and it wasn't, you know, the reporters were not convinced either way. And in a way, I thought, well, that's actually okay if they're just sort of scratching their head and not really sure. They haven't solidified a belief or a decision. They're kind of thinking about it, and they seem to be filled with a sense of wonder and curiosity and, like, I don't know, did I just see what I think I saw? Could it be, you know, just that kind of loose state of awareness, I think is actually helpful in the long run. But they didn't come out just, you know, shrugging their shoulders and, it's a fake, you know. It wasn't like that at all. Other people were trying to turn it into that, but no, it wasn't. And nobody has actually proven that it was a hoax. As far as I can tell, it was not a hoax. And people say, we created this video, it cost us $90, and it's just the same, and it just sort of shows that it's all fake. Well, it isn't, you know. I mean, there's there's graphics programs that would have enabled them to do a lot better job than what they did.
Oh yeah.
But all it proves is that there's graphics programs.
Yeah.
You can make George Bush look like Jesus Christ, or Saddam Hussein look like Elvis Presley if you get a Photoshop and all these different things. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, well, I'm still getting in trouble over them damn probe ships. I had one of the ICAR people. We had got to talking one night, and he started doing some research because they look CGI to me, and I was like, well, why don't you see what you can find? It took him all of 3 days to find out who made the damn thing. And of course, when I asked Linda Mulhall about it, she like to rip my head off. I'm like, Linda, the guy said he made them, boo. And well, that was a bad thing to bring up with her, but. That's one of the things that's always bothered me about all this. It's first off, it's kind of risky business because when you're releasing things like videos and tapes, if they are a hoax, sooner or later somebody's going to figure it out, and then there's going to be 5 tons of hell to pay. And then, but what bothers me the most is sometimes it takes years. Something is considered credible evidence, and then a decade later we find out, oh well, wait, that wasn't true. It does more damage than it does good. That's why I've been dying to see the video, and I'm sure you'll put it out sooner or later. But, I had a question just come in. Wait, where did it go? I just had it in front of my face just 2 seconds ago. Oh, there it is. Somebody wanted to know, have you gotten any responses from national or political leaders? Or, by name. I mean, any of them contact you, say, what the hell are you doing? Or
No, I haven't. But I probably tomorrow or Friday, I'll also issue. I think during the Democratic National Convention, I made an offer to Senator Obama to provide a briefing because I really expect that any Democrat that gets into the White House is still going to be denied a lot of the information that they should have, whereas the Republicans will, be more. It'll be easier for them to get it, but the information they get will probably just reinforce the weaponization of space and the whole buildup of the military and more of that same thing. So I will make a similar offer to Senator McCain. And actually, there's a petition, an online petition that was set up to allow people outside of Denver to kind of sign on in support of this ballot initiative. And this was set up by Larry Bryant out there in Virginia. Maybe you know him.
Yeah.
Wonderful man. And very supportive of this campaign. And one of the people that signed on to that petition was a delegate from Pagosa Springs, Colorado, a delegate to the Republican convention in Colorado, the state convention. And he signed that in support of the ballot initiative. And he said, I was at the convention, my friend and I, and we went outside and we saw a UFO. And it's real. This is real. And we got to get the truth out there. And this was Republican. And you know that Reagan had quite a bit of history in this.
Yeah.
I did a interview with Shirley MacLaine, I think two Sundays ago.
Yeah, I actually think I caught that one.
Yeah, and she brought up that she had sat next to Lucille Ball during Reagan's inauguration, and Lucy was telling her about a story that Ronald Reagan had told her before he got into politics about how he and Nancy had been driving down Mulholland Drive in California and saw a craft come and land and a ramp or some steps lowered down, and I think 4, what looked like extraterrestrial beings got out and told him in his mind, I think this is the word she used, they told him in his mind that he should stop being an actor and get into politics. And Lucy said, so now we're getting this nutcase as our president. And Shirley said, she said, Lucy obviously didn't know who she was talking to because, of course, Shirley was already, familiar with this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But within the Republican Party, there seems to be more information available to them and more easiness talking about it. But unfortunately, I fear that, that the talk is all in the direction of a kind of fear-based approach to the issue that would result, again, in weaponization of space and other kinds of agendas.
You're probably the only person besides myself I've ever heard admit that the Republicans probably know more about this than the Democrats do. I've gotten in trouble at conferences for bringing that up, but I don't know when it started. I would have thought, being Kennedy was a Democrat, that maybe they would have known more, but somewhere after Vietnam, it seemed like everything switched to the Republicans. There's no doubt that George Bush Sr. knows. Now, whether or not he told baby Bush is anybody's guess, but there's no doubt that Sr. knows. I mean, come on. Head of the CIA, 8 years as vice president, 4 years as president. If anybody on the planet knows the truth, he knows the truth. Reagan obviously knew something. I mean, come on. He instituted Star Wars, and then he instituted Pine Gap, the defense of outer space. And then he made, 6 speeches where he brought up an invasion. He obviously knew something. Now, whether or not, like I said, whether baby Bush knows or not, I don't know. And as far as the Clintons, they had an interest in it, but they were never told. Carter was never told. We know that. I mean, both of these presidents, said we were never told.
Well, did they say that they were never told, or that they were never told by the people that they should have been told?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. That's what Bill related to, that he was never told by, let's say, someone in the upper government. He was told, just never by anybody of consequence. There was people he knew that might have been associated with programs that he kind of hinted around with, but he was never told by the right people. In other words, the CIA, head of the CIA or NSA or Secret Service never came up to him and said, Bill, look, the planet's being visited. This is what they're doing. This is why they're here. No, you can't do anything about it. No, you can't tell anybody. I don't think he had that conversation. And I do think Ronald Reagan and Bush did. I just don't know if baby Bush did. And it's hard to say what Bush Jr. knows. Because on one aspect, the man looks like a complete moron some days, and then some days he actually looks like he knows what he's doing. So I don't know what to think of.
You mean like playing dumb?
Well, yeah, because
being more informed than.
What was like the thing with the Russians just recently? He's in Beijing, Russia's invading Georgia. Bush is like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. And I'm thinking, what the hell, dude? I mean, but
what's the score?
Yeah, and to me, all that suggested to me was he knew this was going on already. He already knew this was going on. And I got to be honest about this. Since this started, McCain has caught up with Obama in the polls to run neck and neck now. And before, he was double digits behind Obama. So when it comes to a leader that's going to be, if we're going to be looking like we're getting in a war, Obama ain't going to have a chance. Public's going to vote McCain in because they're going to feel more comfortable with him. And one of the Democrats brought this up the other night. He said, we've been living in this fantasy world for the last 18 years thinking, we don't have to worry about the Russians no more, and we can do this, and we can do that, and we can do this. And this is why candidates like Obama are feasible for our country. But in reality, that is not the truth. The truth is we're headed for a new Cold War, and we need a strong president. And that kind of floored me when I heard a Democrat say that. I was kind of like, okay, what are y'all trying to end this man's career? I told him, this is another one of those elections where I'm going to have to vote for the lesser of two evils because I don't know, I don't think we've had a decent candidate in, 20 years.
Well, of course, it's not all about the candidates, all the people around them.
That's true, too.
And, I would really hate to see, more of Cheney and Rumsfeld types controlling stuff.
And what's her name? What's her name? Kind of reminds me of Cheney. I never can remember that Alaska governor's name, but she kind of reminds me of Cheney. She got that, like, don't with me because I will drop something on your head.
Yeah. There's a funny parody. I don't remember. I don't know who created it, but a parody of John McCain calling her up and she getting tough with him and kind of humbling him. But I tell you, one thing that bothers me is I know that McCain has a strong support of Joe Lieberman.
Yeah.
And his wife, as far as I know, still works with the PR firm of Hill and Knowlton. And that was the firm that fabricated the congressional testimony with the young Iraqi girl talking about some atrocities being done by the Iraqi soldiers. A Kuwaiti girl talking about the atrocities done by Iraqi soldiers in the first Persian Gulf War that actually helped to rally. And this was played over and over as real news. And it rallied a lot of Americans to support getting into that war. And the whole thing was fabricated.
Yeah.
It didn't actually happen. And so this is, I think, okay, now with the whole UFO thing, that's precisely the kind of connection and the strategy that could be engaged to turn any kind of UFO experience or disclosure towards the negative side. Again, to build up the military and scare people and through fear,
Well, it should. And I don't know. I would like to see a more conducive political environment. Now, Obama might be the right guy to be pushing. I really think Hillary would have been the right woman for what we're discussing tonight, because she has an avid interest in ufology. And I think if she would have somehow miraculously became the candidate, I really think Hillary would have pushed for disclosure. Now, whether or not we would have got it, she might have pushed for personal disclosure and maybe hint around to the public that something had happened. But I think she would have definitely pushed any way it goes. Obama just doesn't seem like the pushy kind of guy to me. He looks like the kind of guy that when he was growing up in school, he probably got beat up on a regular basis. So I don't think he's going to be real pushy against Congress, and I don't think he's going to be real pushy against the people. Now, I could be wrong, and I hope I am, actually, but he just doesn't seem like that kind of pushy kind of person. So, of course, he's selling one thing to the population and maybe a whole other kind of character when he gets in office. That's something we'll have to wait and see. But I would like to see a president that at least has an interest in this. And there has been a few. Jimmy Carter had an interest in it. Ronald Reagan had an interest in it. The Clintons definitely had an interest in it. Which tells you if the highest office in the country, the most powerful person in the world, has an interest in this, everyone should. When Ronald Reagan made that speech, the whole world should have said, what the hell does he know that the rest of us don't? And when he instituted Star Wars with these lasers that were obviously not designed to shoot down missiles, but when he instituted Pine Gap, the joint British defense of outer space, the world should have been going, what's going on? He obviously
dumbed down too much. Is that?
Well, I talk about sheeples all the time, Jeff, about especially Americans being sheeples. At least 70% of America walks around in a daze. Some of the stuff that goes on in our country, I was raised the same way you were. We the people, we control the government, we make the decision. Honestly, since the early 70s, I don't think there's been any proactive Americans in this country. There's no real lobbying of people, and was lobbying of big companies and stuff. People paid lobbyists, but you don't see too many big groups going to Washington and lobbying Congress for this, that, or the other thing. You don't see people, getting big groups together and protesting in the streets because of things we're doing. It's like the Iraq War. If this war would have happened in the 70s and we'd have found out we were lied to, they'd have been protesting everywhere. And we'd have brought our troops home, but that didn't happen. And Americans seem to just take the status quo. They're too interested in, I got to go bring my son to soccer practice. I got to go pick up my daughter from school. I got to go meet such and such for dinner. I got to go meet such and such. They're just into their own little lives, and they're not really concerned. As long as the government doesn't do anything to affect their lives, they don't seem to care, even though they're losing right after right after right. They just seem to be in a daze. But let me get you to give them the website, because we're going to go take a break right quick. So tell them what the website is, and we'll go take a break.
My website?
Yeah, so they can find you. Yeah.
It's extracampaign.org. That's normal spelling, EXTRA, campaign.org.
And for y'all that can't spell, you can find it on the UFO Undercover site, right under Jeff's name. Just click it and go. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a few minutes. I got a bunch more questions lined up for Jeff. I see we got quite a few stacked up in the queue, so when we get back, we'll get some questions started. I want everyone to please stay tuned to UFO Undercover. I am your host, Joe Montaldo. I'm sitting and speaking with Jeff Peckman, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes, so stay tuned. And we are.
Welcome to you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to UFO Undercover. Like Natasha said, I am your host, Joe Montaldo. Tonight's guest is Jeff Peckman. We've actually crossed several topics, which we're going to shift back to extra in a minute, because there's still quite a few questions. The one I see my email is quite loaded down with things. Also, remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to listen to us via UpSnap, you can go to the UFO Undercover site or to the Paranormal Radio site. There's a toll-free number there now that you can call straight in and listen for free, or you can do it the old-fashioned way and type in Para 27627 on your cell phone and listen to us free. And by the way, this is anywhere in the world, guys. You can listen to us on your cell phone anywhere in the world. You can listen to us on 105.3 UPRN in New Orleans, and all of the different venues that carry us now on the internet, including the newest addition to the family, Black Vault Radio, which is now an affiliate of ours and has put 4 of our shows into syndication. So as you can see, the station is growing, but there's no excuse for you not to listen, ladies and gentlemen. So y'all said, a lot of y'all said, it can't be here this time, that time. Well, I took all your excuses away. I don't want to hear anymore. Jeff, welcome back to the show, man.
Thank you, Joe.
Sorry I had to get those promos out. Thank God we ain't going to do paid commercials. That would make me insane. It would. Now, I want to go back. I noticed, hold on, where was I? I was just on your site just 2 minutes ago. What did I do with it? I wanted to ask you a question about something. It was under the breaking news. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? That's what I get for moving sites around while I'm talking. Anyway, I noticed on, yeah, there it is. It says another ET ballot bid. Now, what was that? It says Lands Denver City Hall. Is that the same one, or is this something different?
It's still my ballot initiative,
Okay.
but that was regarding the revised version that I'll be discussing with the city officials tomorrow afternoon.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, y'all can go. It's extracampaign.org. Y'all can go to a site. He's got quite a lot of information on the site. I have it up in front of me right now because there's some things I wanted to ask. See, I see down here he's got 724 Apollo astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, which will be on this show in a couple of weeks. So I'll have to ask him about this. And then here I see where you got 819 Obama offered ET briefing, and you said you were going to offer a McCain one, right?
Yeah, I'll probably make that offer on Friday, and he and his vice presidential candidate are supposed to be in Colorado on Saturday.
Oh, well, he might actually pay a little bit of attention. And, oh, by the way, to my two birthday radio show hosts before I get, Tree Sheridan, happy birthday. I know yours was yesterday. And to Karen Dolan, whose is tomorrow. Happy birthday. I know y'all didn't want the whole world knowing y'all's birthday was, but hey, happy birthday to y'all. Yeah, Karen, Richard Dolan's wife, hosts a show for me through the keyhole on Friday nights. And, but I just, because I would forget, y'all know how I am. If I don't say it on the air, I will forget to tell you. I'll get on to something else. Now, how do you feel? I mean, you've seen enough of McCain on TV and heard him talk. Do you think he'll be receptive even a little bit to this, or do you think he might look at you like, oh, my God, this guy has lost his mind? Or
well, if he even knows,
that's true. That's true.
That the offer's being made.
Yeah, that's
I don't
true.
know, but well, there's a couple things. I'm an independent, a registered independent voter.
Thank God for that.
I can throw in the comment by the Republican delegate from Colorado that he had seen a UFO at the Republican convention, or while he was there.
I heard that from somebody else too. But that was it was the last Republican convention, right?
Well, this was the state. He saw this
okay.
at the state Republican convention on May 30th, which I think was actually, that might have been the same day. Well, May 30th was the day we did the press conference, and so that might have been the same day he saw it, if I recall. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be.
And one other thing I have is a photograph, a group photo, with me standing immediately behind President Reagan and Nancy Reagan at the White House, and it was just I could say that I was there undercover, serving ice cream. I was actually serving ice cream just because a friend's business was invited to serve ice cream at the congressional picnic. So, just to help him out, we went, have a little fun. And so, those three things. And I think also McCain seems to be doing some gutsier kinds of stuff these days. Now, the fact that Senator Obama, his campaign did not respond to that offer, McCain might, just for that reason.
He might. Well, like I said, Obama just doesn't look like he's the kind of, how can I say this in a G-rated show? He just doesn't look like he has any kahunas. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel okay about him.
I feel okay about him.
In the big issue, I think that I would trust him to deal with it in a more responsible and open way than another set of Republicans.
Yeah, well, I trust Obama in some things. There were some things I heard him say that I thought, well, he does have some stuff on the ball. My biggest problem with Obama is simply his lack of experience. I mean, 1 year as a junior senator does not make for president of the United States. But other than that, I mean, he's an excellent speaker. He seems to be well-managed, well-rounded. I don't care much for his wife, but he seems to be a very well-rounded individual. So I'm willing to give him a shot. Let's be honest, he can't do any worse than Jimmy Carter or some of the other presidents we've had recently. So, I mean, I'm just to the point now where I am, like the rest of the country, I'm ready for a change. I'm ready for some kind of new, fresh politicians that have an interest in what we're doing. It's just, Obama's got some good things. McCain's got some good things. Maybe if we could mash them together and throw in Condi and a few others in there, we might actually get a candidate. But, because he does. I mean, he does have, people hear me all the time because I do every couple of months I host Voice of the People for a friend of mine, November Hansen, to do a political show. And, I've come down hard on Obama. I've come down hard on McCain because personally I don't think either one of them or the guy to run this country. I just don't feel they have the well-roundedness to have the political, to have, you got to have a couple of things to be president. One, you have to have strong foreign affairs, and the foreign countries have to respect you. And that's hard to earn these days for the United States. So you got to have that. The military has to respect the commander-in-chief. So you have to have that. The people have to respect the commander-in-chief. So these are three things that I don't think either one of these possess in abundance. I think, like, Obama can get the people to like him. I don't think he can. I heard what the Europeans said about him, so they're not going to like him no matter what. The Russians had already said they thought he was going to make a weak president, so he's already losing on the foreign front, and the military doesn't like him at all. So that's two of the three go against him, and then opposite on McCain. He's got the two strong ones, but the people don't trust him. So
yeah, pretty tough situation.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a tough one, and so we can hate on both of them all day, or we can praise both of them all day. But bottom line is, those three things are important to everybody who's voting, and most everybody I've talked to agrees. Neither one of the candidates possess all three, and as long as that's coming down to voting for the the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, well, maybe the upside of all this is that people have to look at themselves more and think, okay, now, am I good in all these areas, in all the areas that I should be good? Am I taking enough responsibility in my own life, or is this a sign that I've relinquished too much to the person in the White House I think is going to solve my problems? Maybe people will be more reflective on their own self.
Yeah, well, they should be. One of my big things is, I say it on the air all the time, if you don't vote, don't bitch. Because this is how I feel about it. If you didn't vote, you don't have the right to gripe.
Yeah.
Okay? You didn't take the time to go vote, whether you thought your vote was going to make a difference or not. You didn't take the time to do it. You don't have the right to complain. Some other moron put the politicians. And really, the last two presidents' elections, what we had, 36% of the country vote. There's been no true winner of a presidency since probably Kennedy. And I don't. It's just most of the country doesn't want to vote. Now, here's something interesting, ladies and gentlemen. My son told me about this yesterday, and I didn't know about this. You can vote on the Xbox now. You can cast your vote via the Xbox. And there's a new program coming up, hopefully in time for this election, probably not to the next one, where you'll be able to vote from your computer. Now, this is a guarantee that if you can vote from home, from your computer, without getting up and going anywhere, we should see an 80 to 85% vote. That's how much more people. They expect 40% more of the population to vote if they can do it from their house. Now, I don't know why people can't just put it in the mail, because I know you can mail in your ballot, but I guess that's too much work. But starting your computer up and hitting yes apparently isn't that much work. You're going to have to put in your SSI number and stuff like that, but they're going to make it where you can vote off the internet. And I don't know if this is going to work, or if this is going to end up in one of these disasters where this candidate swears that the election was rigged or what have you. But I can tell you this, a lot more people will vote if they can vote from their home. And so you might actually start seeing truly elected politicians in this country one day. And not just, because right now the presidents are elected by the minority, not by the majority. There hasn't been a majority vote, meaning more than 50% of Americans vote, I think they said, since Roosevelt. So, right now the presidents are being elected by most politicians are being elected by the minority. It's the people who are willing to get out and vote, guys. Get out there. Come on. I know I talk to a lot of people every day, and I know all y'all got bitches and gripes. Go vote. Especially in local elections. Definitely go vote, because that makes more of a difference than the feds do. I don't know, Jeff. You got to gripe at them all the time, man.
Yeah, well, you reminded me of a saying that's very frequently in my mind as I'm making these decisions about the campaign. Something I heard in a previous campaign, that the world is run by those who show up.
That's true. That's a damn good.
You got to show up.
I got to say, that's damn good, because it does. It is true. It is run by the people who show up. And these days, most Americans are too lazy, and they just want to sit at home and watch their television or do whatever they're doing. They don't want to get involved. Now, for the parents, I want to tell y'all something, okay? That is just BS, because all that's doing is teaching your kids not to care, all right? You need to make your kids understand. See, I was in the military, so it was forced in their head, vote, 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 vote. I mean, the military, You can't even not vote in a military, okay? They will come out and find you and give you something to vote with. They'll bring a little piece of paper. Matter of fact, we were sitting on the tarmac waiting to be shipped overseas. They brought the ballots out so we could vote on the tarmac. All right, so you can't even get out of vote when you're in the military. So Americans just need to vote. Y'all need to pay attention. See, it goes back to what Jeff and I are talking about, especially for the people that are living in Denver, but for the people who are listening tonight, participate, guys. Write to Jeff. Get involved, okay? Because the more of y'all that get involved, the more likely the press and the politicians are going to take this seriously. If 5 people write in, well, there's no need for a politician to take it serious because he's going, well, only 5 people interested. 155,000 people write in, and then he's got to start thinking he might get unelected or not reelected, I should say. So it makes a difference, guys. Just get involved. Whatever it is, you don't have to get involved with what we're talking about tonight. Get involved. Whether it's in ufology or anything, but just get involved in something. Get your lazy butt off, stop being a couch potato, and get involved in something. And for my friends in Europe, that goes for y'all too. Y'all just as fat and lazy as Americans are. Look,
you tell him there.
I'm not. Look, see, Jeff's being quiet. He's a nice guy. He won't tell y'all this. He's thinking it, but he's not going to tell y'all this. See, I'm going to tell y'all because what y'all going to do? Write to me and tell me something nasty? I'll tell you don't listen to the show no more. The thing of it is because I learned a long time ago, Jeff, if you ask people nicely, they ignore you. You demand it or you get loud, they tend to pay more attention. And at least they still might not go do anything, but at least they're listening. And I just want them to get out of this habit of sitting home and watching elections instead of being involved in elections. And I want to see it. Like I said, I'm going to vote. I just don't know who I'm voting for. Yeah, I might be one of them coin flipping things. I don't know, but I'll vote for somebody. You know what? More than likely, this is going to fall to for me, it's going to probably fall to the VPs, and both of them scared the living hell out of me. I don't know.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff coming out about that.
Now, what's your next move? I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but what's going to be your next move?
Well, tomorrow I have this meeting, and there'll probably be a little bit of media coverage on the points of that. What I'll be explaining is why the initiative is being revised, and basically what was an 11-member commission will now be 7 members, and that will be achieved by just removing the mandate that there are representatives from the departments, Denver Departments of Safety and Human Services, the Office of Cultural Affairs, and a representative from the Denver City Council. So all those people that are basically on the payroll would be removed. At least the mayor does not have to appoint someone from each of those 4 areas. What I realized, it was just a gesture to involve them in this because it is important, but to have somebody volunteered instead of volunteering is, it's a little different there, a little bit of a difference. And so I wanted it to be purely voluntary, and did not want people to be kind of forced into it who either do not want to be there in the commission or who really are not very knowledgeable or interested in the topic. So what I've done is taken those 4 people out of the commission and then set the bar much higher as far as the kinds of people that should be on the commission, which now can be, the members can be from anywhere in the universe. It's actually stated pretty much that way. And that most of them have to have at least a PhD in some related area of natural sciences or social sciences. One would have to be experienced in consulting at least 100 people who have believed they've had some kind of close encounter with an extraterrestrial being. Most of these people would have had to have written a book of these 7 different members. And so, it's set the bar high because I want to have the greatest possible benefit come out of this commission. And so it's going to draw people that are passionate about the issue, who are knowledgeable, who are published authors, who have had, years of experience in dealing with these topics. At least one person has to be expert in the witness testimony from people who had top secret security clearance. And of course, the person that comes to mind is Dr. Stephen Greer to satisfy that kind of role. And what I've done just this afternoon is invited people. I explained to a number of people that I interact with that are, Exopolitics Radio, Alfred Weber, and Victor Vigiani and these kinds of people, I've explained to them that, okay, now the commission is pretty much opened up to anybody. It's not just restricted to Denver residents, and there are no people from the city government involved now unless they really want to be. And I invited them to request the opportunity to be on the commission, either as a regular, one of the 7 regular members, or as an advisory member. In fact, Joe, I would make that, I would invite you to do that as well. If you'd like to be an advisory member, to be available in case there's a particular topic that could use your expertise, then there's no limit to the amount of advisory members. There's no criteria for having a PhD or anything like that, but really people that have something to offer and could be valuable when there's a topic discussed that needs a particular kind of expertise.
No, I would enjoy it. I got 3 degrees, advanced electronics and advanced avionics.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
all these things are going to come into play. And so that's what I'll be discussing tomorrow, is primarily the changes in the ballot initiative, and that we will, in fact, still be targeting the May 2009 election. It turned out to be a blessing to delay this by 6 months, because it's going to turn out to be a record number of referendums and initiatives on the ballot in Denver, 19 of them, in addition to all the candidates during a presidential election. Whereas in the spring, this may be just one of 1 or 2 things going on during that election. And so there'll be a lot more opportunity for in-depth discussion. I'll need to raise money, so if anybody wants to donate $5, if you think that it's worth a few dollars to get this issue out, not just to people in Denver, but through Denver to the whole world, as it has been happening so far, I'd invite them to make even a small contribution, because we will be paying paid petitioners, people who collect signatures for pay, and I feel they ought to get paid because they're doing a lot of hard work, and it's might create a whole new economy to get paid for doing something relative to extraterrestrial realities. So there's that, some fundraising, and basically just next week I should have new petitions in hand to start over, and we do have to start over to collect about 4,000 signatures. People could let your listeners, if they know people in Denver, check out my website. We'll try to have something organized where people can go and know that there will be a signature, somebody there collecting signatures. So it's basically, after tomorrow's meeting, I have one more step to get the petition finalized, and that's through the city clerk. And then we just start back on the regular campaign stuff, collecting the signatures, educating people. I'll be doing some more interviews, and probably going to more schools during the next few months that are just interested in this topic. I mean, it's a very, what's going to come out of this, Joe, is very exciting, because as the people study the issue, they're going to see opportunities for cultural enrichment, for potential energy technologies, clean energy technologies, for economic development, for a whole range of career choices coming down the road to this new generation of students. And so I think having a taste of this information and realizing that, yeah, it is real, what's going on here, I think that's going to inspire a whole generation. And it can happen just through, some simple strategies like engaging people directly. So if we can basically brief the citizens of Denver with the same information that presidents have had, or not even, maybe probably more than what many of the presidents have had, I believe that will change the dynamic. It will change the discussion, because to have one city so well informed about all this information of the existence of these extraterrestrial beings and their vehicles that have been here for so many decades and longer, I think just having one large population on the planet that really has that information will start to have a cascading effect, a domino effect, whatever you want to call it, and it'll just spread very quickly through the people directly, pure grassroots kind of activity. And I think there'll be some really wonderful surprises coming out of this. And one of them will be the development of school curricula in a lot of these topics.
Well, that would be a nice thing, because it's something we were talking about just a couple of weeks ago. why none of this is taught in any school anywhere. And I don't mean so much, because I'm a 25-year veteran abduction researcher with, UFO ufologist, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, we specialize in contact cases. Now, I don't expect any of that stuff to be taught in school because, frankly, we don't understand any of it now. But the fact that there probably is life, I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, we were told there weren't any other planets. Okay, well, we know that's wrong. It's like the first time I said, oh, there's water on Mars, everybody said, well, you're crazy. Well, guess what? There's water on Mars. And both NASA and the Space Agency agree that they're going to probably find some type of life. We're not talking intelligent life, but some type of life on Mars. They also think they're going to find life on 3 or 4 other planets or planetoids in our system. Well, if you take that and times at how many planets they estimate that are in the galaxy right now, you're talking a lot of life. And, when you start talking, 100 billion, 50 billion planets with life, and out of that, another 5 billion with intelligent life, that's a lot. And that's not even, right now, the current estimation on planets is stars is 200 billion. And we know most stars have more than one planet.
Right. Well, what do you think about the you must be familiar with the Disclosure Project witness testimony from the people who are prepared to swear under oath, to testify under oath, that NASA has had many videos and photographs where extraterrestrial UFOs were in the photos and the videos, and they erased them. And then they come back and they get their $15 billion a year in funding to look for intelligent life in outer space. What's your take on that?
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because some of the disclosure witnesses I think are quite good. Some of them I'm not so sure about because I look at everything kind of double-folded. I figure if you've got 200 witnesses, probably 50 of them either have some kind of agenda or have some association with the government. So you don't know how many of those is different information and how much is real. So I'm always a little skeptical when it comes to that. But NASA put their own foot in. What was it? STS. What was it, guys and girls? STS 81. No, STS 41, right? They put their foot in it on that one because, first off, it's obviously a craft taxing the ship. And obviously something from the surface took a pot shot at it. I mean, you can see it clearly in the video. Whatever that beam of light is moving from the surface towards space, and you can watch this thing change directions on 3 occasions.